Today, we're diving into a fascinating and sensitive topic. Did the Prophet Muhammad perform miracles? Many believe he split the moon, made water flow from his fingers, or even traveled to heaven in a single night. But are these stories rooted in the earliest Islamic source, the Quran, or were they added later to make Islam more appealing? The Quran is considered by Muslims to be the literal word of God revealed to Muhammad. If Muhammad performed miracles, you'd expect the Quran to shout it from the rooftops, right? But let's look at what it actually says. Surah Al-Isra 1759 suggests God didn't send miraculous signs because earlier people rejected them. Surah Al-Ankabut 2950. When people demanded miracles, Muhammad said, "Signs are only with Allah, and I am only a clear warner, not a miracle worker." Now, let's tackle one of the most famous miracle stories, the splitting of the moon, mentioned in Surah Al-Qamar 54:1. The hour has come near, and the moon has been split. Sounds miraculous, right? But hold on. The verse doesn't say Muhammad split the moon. It's in past tense, and scholars like Tafsir al-Jalalain suggest it's about a future event tied to the Day of Judgment, not something Muhammad did. The detailed story of Muhammad splitting the moon doesn't appear in the Quran. It shows up in hadith collections, like Sahih al-Bukhari, compiled over 300 years after Muhammad's death. Next, the night journey, or Isra and Miraj. This story says Muhammad traveled from Mecca to Jerusalem on a winged horse, Burak, and ascended to heaven to meet God and past prophets. It's a cornerstone of Islamic tradition. But where does it come from? The Quran mentions a journey in Surah Al-Isra 17:1. Glory to him who took his servant by night from the sacred mosque to the farthest mosque. That's it. No winged horse, no heavenly ascent, no meeting prophets. The vivid details come from hadith, like Sahih Muslim, written centuries later. Rationally, the Quran's vagueness suggests a spiritual or dreamlike experience, not a physical journey. Jerusalem's Al-Aqsa Mosque didn't exist in Muhammad's time. It was built decades later under the Umayyads. Plus, if Muhammad physically traveled and ascended, why didn't the Quran, revealed during his lifetime, to elaborate on such a monumental event? Third, the miracle of water flowing from Muhammad's fingers. Hadith, like Sahih al-Bukhari, Book 4, Hadith 779, claim Muhammad made water gush from his fingers to quench a thirsty army. It's a dramatic story, but let's test it. The Quran never mentions this miracle. If Muhammad performed such a public, practical act, why isn't it in the Quran, which emphasizes his role as a warner? Finally, the talking tree. Some hadith, like Sahih Muslim Book 40, Hadith 6984, claim a tree trunk cried when Muhammad stopped preaching near it, or that trees greeted him. Again, the Quran is silent on this. It never mentions trees speaking or crying for Muhammad. These tree stories come from hadith. Idea of trees that can talk is common stories from ancient Greece and pre-Islamic Arabia, which says about trees that speak or have human capabilities. 300 years later, when Bukhari and Muslim were compiling hadiths, they added miracle to compete with Christianity, where Jesus actually performed miracles. Now, some might say the hadith are authentic and confirm Muhammad's miracles. That's a fair point, but hadith authenticity is debated even among Muslim scholars. Early collectors like Bukhari filtered thousands of narrations, and many were rejected as fabricated. Plus, the Quran is considered superior to hadith in Islamic theology. If the Quran repeatedly says Muhammad was just a warner, not a miracle worker, that carries more weight. Later stories might have been added to boost his image, but they contradict the Quran's own narrative. Thanks for watching. Hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into history and faith.